What's going on guys, Kade is here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the top 3 best Warhammer builds for PvP and PvE in New World. So for each and every single build I will explain what attributes, weapon masteries and even weapon and gear perks you want to have. Then what gems and specific gear you want to use to get out your stats as much damage and defensives as possible. Then as well I will show you the best gameplay of me using different weapons so you would know which abilities you want to use first on your enemies and much more. So if all this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the first build, which is the Great Axe and Warhammer, and then these are the attributes you want to have. So then no matter from which level you start using this build, you first of all want to get your strength to 100 or even 150 and then start building your constitution, and around level 60 you should have 250 strength and 200 constitution. And then last but not the least, for your armor you want to make a choice to go with the medium or full heavy category. I have seen a bunch of players going with the medium armor and having the ability to have 3 medium jumps while being melee is pretty good, or on the other hand being a bit more tankier is better for some other players. So I would recommend to try out both these setups and see which one you like better. But like I've said, both these options are good, it just depends on what is your playstyle. So then if you choose to go with the heavy category, you go with full heavy armor, and for your character to look better you can equip a shield as well on your back. Or then if you choose to go with the medium category, then for your setup you should be having a heavy helmet, heavy chest armor, medium gloves, light pants and medium boots. So then for our first weapon we have the Great Axe, and these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock the first ability called the Maelstrom and then get these 3 perks. Then afterwards unlock the second ability called the Gravity Well and then get these 3 perks. Then from this point now let's move over to the other side and unlock this 1 perk. And then lastly unlock the last third ability called the Charge and then get these 4 perks. And now from this moment you're full free to pick and choose which perks you want to unlock next. Okay, and now let's move over to the second weapon, which is the Warhammer, and then these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock this 1 perk and then the first ability called the Shockwave and then get these 2 perks. Then afterwards get the second ability called the Path of Destiny and then get these 2 perks. Then from here let's move over to the other side and unlock both these 2 perks, and then lastly get the last third ability called the Breaking Ball and then get these 3 perks, and that's it. Now again from this point you can spend your points in whatever way you like. So then let's move over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build. So first things first, for your Great Axe Q ability we have the Gravity Well, which you can just aim and shoot, and if you hit a target in that electric storm he will take damage and get stunned. Then the second ability is called the Maelstrom, which performs a fast spinning attack which deals damage and pulls targets closer to you. And then lastly we have the F ability called the Charge, and this is a dash ability which will deal damage and give you more mobility. And now let's go straight into the Warhammer, and the first Q spell is called the Shockwave, and when using this spell it will give us the ability to slam down the hammer and create a small earthquake, and all players standing in it will get stunned for 2 seconds. Then for the second ability we have the R ability called the Path of Destiny, which creates a huge electric wave, and all enemies standing in this path will be taking bunch of damage. And then lastly we have the F ability called the Wrecking Ball, which when using strikes down the ground with your Warhammer, dealing additional damage and flattening your target. So the way you want to attack an enemy is by first of all using the Gravity Well, which will then stun your target, and then follow that up with the Maelstrom ability, which will do damage and pull your target closer to you. Then at this point switch to the Warhammer and use the Shockwave and then Path of Destiny. And lastly, when all of your spells are on cooldown, hit the enemy with the Wrecking Ball and flatten your target. Then from this point switch back to the Great Axe and keep on using heavy attacks, and if you ever need to then use the blocking system as well. And then lastly I always save my charge ability to run away from the enemy or to catch him, so save it for later, and don't forget to use your medium or heavy jumps to escape enemy abilities, and that's about it. Like you can see with this build there is no one best way to use your spells. The most important thing is to know what each ability does, and with time and practice you will know what to do in each situation. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. This great axe and Warhammer weapon combination is very good because you can still survive for very long, but at the same time deal bunch of damage. So then lastly, for your Warhammer and great axe for PvP, you want to use the Opal gem, and then for PvE, if you want to be a tank, then use the Carnelian gem, and then for all of your gear, get the Enix gems. And then on top of all this, to find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, which is titled "Which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build?" You can find the link in the description or just scroll through my channel, and in that video I will specifically explain how the perks work, which ones are the best for your specific gear and weapons, and much more. So if you're looking for a tank / melee bruiser build, then this is the best weapon combination for you, so enjoy! So then moving over to the second build, which is the best healer / paladin tank build. And for the weapons you want to use the live staff and warhammer, and then these are the attributes you want to have. So first things first, if you start from level 0, you want to get your focus to 150 and then start building your constitution, and around level 60 you should have 300 focus and 150 constitution. And then last but not the least, for your armor you want to go with the medium category, and the best gear setup is to have heavy helmet, heavy chest armor, medium gloves, light pants and medium boots. And then to quickly explain that we get around 200 attribute points from reaching level 60, and then the other 250 points we get from jewelry and equipment. So all that you have to do is get gear or any type of equipment with focus and constitution, and to make these specific numbers like 300 and 150, just get your gear and then spend your leveling points to make these numbers even. So then moving over to the first weapon, which is the live staff, and then these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock this one perk and then the first ability called the Sacred Ground, and then afterwards unlock all these 5 perks. Then now let's go over to the other side and unlock this one perk, and then the second ability called the Beacon, and then get these 2 perks. Then lastly unlock the last third ability called the Light's Embrace, and then get these 2 perks as well. And now from this point you are free to spend your points in whatever order you like. Okay, and now let's move over to the second weapon, which is the Warhammer, and then these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock the first ability called the Clear Out, and then get these 2 perks. Then afterwards unlock the second ability called the Shockwave, and then get these 2 perks. And lastly unlock the last third ability called the Path of Destiny, and then get these 2 perks. And now from this point let's take a closer look at the left side and unlock all these 3 perks, and that's it. Now again you can spend your points in whatever order you like. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build. So for the live staff, your Q ability is called the Sacred Ground, which you have to point and select the area you want to place it in, and then cast it for a split second. Then the R ability is called the Light's Embrace, and it basically works the same way, just for a single target. And you can heal yourself by holding the control button and then activating the spell. And lastly we have the F ability called the Beacon, which you can just aim and shoot, and it places a huge healing circle on the ground. So then for the second weapon we have the Warhammer, and the first Q spell is called the Clear Out, and it is a wide swing that knocks back all targets in 4-meter range. Then the R ability is called the Shockwave, and when using the spell it will give us the ability to slam down the hammer and create a small earthquake, and all players standing in this will get stunned for 2 seconds. And then lastly we have the F ability called the Path of Destiny, which creates a huge electric wave, and all enemies standing in this path will be taking bunch of damage. And then as far as your healer spell combinations go, it is your own personal preference, but if you can, and in the best case scenario, always use the Beacon ability first and then the Light's Embrace ability, and this way your healing is increased. And then if your teammates are grouped up and low health, use the Sacred Ground ability, and as the Light's Embrace ability has super low cooldown, you can basically spam it every 2-3 seconds. And then when you're not healing, switch to the Warhammer, and when attacking a target, first of all use your Shockwave and then Path of Destiny, and this will stun the enemy and do AoE damage. And then lastly use your Clear Out ability and knock back the target, to either way stop his ability channeling or just to get away from the enemies as a healer. And then for the rest of the time, switch back to the life staff and keep on using your light or heavy attacks for the range damage, because the life staff's damage is a lot higher than the Warhammer's, and that's about it. So then for my last and final conclusions for this build. This life staff and Warhammer weapon combination is very popular, especially in 50v50 wars and PvE farming. And then lastly for your life staff you want to use the Diamond gem. Then for your hammer use the Amber gem. And then for all of your gear, amulets, rings and everything else use the Enix gems. And then on top of all this, like I explained in the first first build. To find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, which is titled which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build, and you can find the link in this video's description or scroll through my channel, and in that video I will specifically explain how perks work, which ones are the best for your specific gear / weapons, and much more. So in a quick summary, if you're looking for one of the best and most fun healer builds that players won't be able to kill you in, then this is the build for you, so have fun. So then, moving over to my last and final build, which for your weapons, we want to go with the sword and warhammer. And then these are the attributes you want to have. So then, like you can see, you always want to split all of your attribute points to half. So divide 50% into strength and 50 in constitution. And around level 60, you should have 250 strength and 200 constitution. And last but not the least, for your gear, you want to go with full heavy armor. And this time you have to use a shield as well. So then for our first weapon, we have the best tanking weapon, aka the sword with shield. And then these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first things first, right off from the start you want to unlock both these two abilities called the shield rush and shield bash, and then get these 3 perks. Then afterwards get the last third ability called the defiant stance, and then get the next perk to him as well. And now from here let's move over to the other side and unlock both these 2 perks, and that's it. Now from this moment you can spend your points in whatever order you like. Okay, and now let's move over to the second weapon, which is the warhammer, and then these are the weapon masteries you want to have. So first of all you want to unlock this one perk and then both these 2 abilities called the shockwave and path of destiny, and then get these 4 perks. Then from here let's take a closer look at the other side and get the last third ability called the armor breaker, and then get these 2 perks, and that's it. Now again you can spend your points in whatever way you like. Okay, so now let's go over to the gameplay where I'll show you the best way to play this build. So then for our first weapon we have the sword, and the first Q spell is called the shield rush, and this spell makes your character run very fast for 5 meters, and if you hit the target while running he will get knocked back. Then the second ability is called the shield bash, which when using it will deal decent damage and stun your enemies in front of you for 2 seconds. And if you're using the taunt gem, then this ability activates the taunt passive, which will make all the mobs that you hit aggro on you instead of your teammates. And then our third ability is called the defiant stance, which you activate and for the next 8 seconds your resistance is increased. Or again, if you're using the taunt gem in PvE, you can activate the spell and increase your threat level, which will make all mobs target you for the next 8 seconds. And as a tank role, this is mainly what you want to keep on doing. So then moving over to the second weapon, which is the warhammer, and the first Q spell is called the armor breaker, which when using makes your character do a powerful swing which penetrates 35% of the target's armor and deals additional damage. Then the R ability is called the shockwave, and when using this spell it will give us the ability to slam down the hammer and create a small earthquake, and all targets standing in it will get stunned for 2 seconds. And then lastly we have the F ability called the path of destiny, which creates a huge electric wave, and all enemies standing in this path will be taking bunch of damage. So the way you want to use this build for PvP or PvE is to first of all remember that your main job as a tank is to keep all the attention on yourself. So what you want to do is first of all activate the shield bash ability, and in the next few seconds you try to hit as many mobs or players as you can. Then when that ability effect has run out, use your defiant stance, and this time all enemies in 4 meter range will automatically aggro on you in PvE, or in PvP you can just keep on using the shield, aka the blocking mechanic, and all the incoming damage will be reduced. And then lastly, if you ever see a healer or other DPS player in trouble or he gets overwhelmed by mobs, then use the shield rush ability and knock back the target. Then after that is done, we can now switch to the warhammer, and this weapon's main objective is to deal damage, stun your enemies, and reduce their armor. So while your most tanking skills are on cooldown, you want to use the warhammer, and on grouped up enemies use the shockwave and then path of destiny, and this will stun and do damage in AoE range. And then lastly, I mainly only use this spell for players, but you can activate this armor breaker spell, and this powerful swing reduce the target's armor and deal additional damage. Of course, depending on the circumstances, you may need to change up your playstyle, but by far this is one of the best tanking builds in the game. And like I've said, the same principles work in PvP and PvE. The only difference is that instead of holding aggro, you use the same abilities in the same order on the enemy players. And then as well, you mainly want to tank and block the damage with the sword and shield, and then on the side, to stun and deal damage to the players, switch to the warhammer, and that's about it. So now for my last and final conclusions for this build. So the sword and shield and Warhammer weapon combination right now is super strong in expeditions and in general for PvP, because you can survive for very long and make all the mobs or enemy players target you, so the rest of your team can deal damage. And then lastly, for our gem choice for the sword and Warhammer, you want to use the Carnelian gem for PvE, and for PvP use the Opal gem, and then for all of your gear, amulets, rings and everything else use the Enix gems. And then again, like I explained in the first two builds, to find out the best weapon and gear perks, watch this video, which is titled "Which weapon and gear perks are the best for your build?" You can find the link in this video's description or scroll through my channel. And in that video I will specifically explain how perks work and which ones are the best for your specific gear / weapons and much more. So what are you waiting for? Try this build out and don't forget to have fun. And that's about it. So I really do appreciate everyone for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback or other good Warhammer builds that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you won't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I'll catch you in my next video. So take it easy. Peace.